everyone, my name is Muhammad SHAHIEZWAN bin SARAWI S51297, and now I'm going to give an introduction of our study. Malaysia is a maritime nation and a country where the trade is depending on international trade involving with other countries. The service industry in relate with Malaysia's trade, where it plays a significant function for the growth of economic activities of the country. The participation of shipping industry in international shipping become important, and Malaysia International Shipping Corporation (MISC) has took interest in this sector, where these shipping companies has established in 1968. So the Malaysia's government intend to enhance the service industry in international shipping to compete at the international level over the year. Thus, huge investment has been made by Malaysia's government to achieve this goal and enhance the local shipping industry and physical infrastructure. The implementation of Cabotage policy by Malaysia's government played a critical part in Malaysia's domestic trade in terms of their protection. Malaysia's Cabotage policy went into effect on January 1, 1980. The policy restricts the movement of commodity across Malaysian water to the ships flying the Malaysian flag. However, due to some issues, the Malaysian government has stated that effective June 2017, the Cabotage policy for shipments between West Malaysia and East Malaysia will be completely abolished. The Cabotage policy, however, continues to apply the cargo maritime activity in East Malaysia only. A Cabotage policy restricts the operations of sea, air, and other transport service within and into a country in order to safeguard domestic transportation service providers against international competitions. In Malaysia, the Cabotage policy restricts foreign ships from operating in Malaysia's seas, allowing only Malaysian shipping companies with the vessel registered under the flag of Malaysia to trade between Malaysia's seaports. The Cabotage policy was implemented in 1980 to reduce the reliance on foreign ships by Malaysia, which had resulted in a foreign cash outflow in the form of freight payment. This study investigates the major issue and challenge of Cabotage policy in West Malaysia and the state of Sabah, taking into consideration various aspects of the maritime sector up until the most recent announcement of its abolition in June 2017. A literature review analysis is used to examine the major issue, challenge, and the way forward of the policy. The literature review analysis is chosen based on the perspective of stakeholders, implying their focus on particular challenge for or against any actions or policy. After weighing the advantage and disadvantage of Cabotage policy and its relevant way of bringing it forward. Now, we go to the problem statement. Firstly, the pricing discrepancy between East and West Malaysia is still occur. Even if Cabotage protection is abolished, the pricing discrepancy between East and West Malaysia, which is blamed on the Cabotage regulations, may not be reduced because freight rates are determined by a variety of factors. Trade flows, marine sector structures, position between global shipping network, operational costs, trade facilitations, sand products, and port infrastructures are the elements that determine international maritime transport costs. It was according to UNCTAD UNTAC 2015 and Wilmer 2014. Besides that, there are trade imbalance necessitating empty container management, positions adjustment at various geographical locations, and storage and container accumulations management in main important regions. In Malaysia, trade between East and West Malaysia is heavily imbalanced. The majority of container ships sailing from Sabah and Sarawak to Peninsular Malaysia return empty, requiring shipping companies to raise their costs to cover the cost. In fact, one empty container will be returned for every 2 laden containers destined from East Malaysia. Domestic shipping operations are limited due to the small volume of cargo when transporting cargo to Sabah and Sarawak is insufficient to offset costs. Next, the Cabotage policy in Malaysia does not guarantee a reduction in freight rate. Malaysian shipping corporations have been condemned and accused of oligopolistic behavior by charging exorbitant shipping rates in addition to a cabotage regime that has hampered competition in the maritime sector. Freight expense between Port Klang and Hong Kong, for example, were RM55 per TEU in 2009, whereas commodity transferred between Port Klang and Sepanggar Port, Kota Kinabalu were RM550 per TEU. In this case, the importance of private anti-competitive practice suggests that eliminating the Cabotage policy in Malaysia does not guarantee a reduction in freight rate. This study will be focused on 3 objectives. As you can see in the slide, the first objective is to find out the major issues and challenges of Cabotage policy in Malaysia. After that, to study the advantage and disadvantage of the Cabotage policy. And lastly, this study is used to provide the best way to take forward the policy for sustainable maritime operations. So in these sections, we focus on describing methodology used for this research. Research is pivotal in academic activity which refer to a search of knowledge. So this research plays a significant part to find the information and solution for every problem issue that is carefully investigated or inquiring, especially through search for the finding for new informations in any branch of knowledge. Hence, the aims of this research methodology is to get information and work plans for research. Thus, quantitative approach will be utilized by us as it considered as an effective and appropriate method to identify the main issues and problems. This research used secondary data to gather all the information through websites, articles, journals, online news and reports to obtain accurate information based on the objective of this research. Hence, all the data and information obtained is very important to analyze and review accurately. As you can see here, the research framework is developed to obtain the result of the study. The purpose of the research design is to find a possible answer to the research questions. So, in this framework, it is start from collecting background information and will end with the conclusions. Every step need to be done sequentially. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad HAFIY bin NORHISAM. In this part of the video, I will tell you about the background information or also know the literature review. In the literature review, it comprises the three parts, which is the Cabotage policy, the Cabotage policy in Malaysia, and the downturn of the Cabotage policy in Malaysia. Okay, so what is the Cabotage policy? According to the several authors in the several article journals, Cabotage policy is a permission to carry out in a given territory to safeguard the domestic industry against the foreign competition. Second is the legal regulation of the commercial shipping operating exclusively within the national territorial water. Third is the vessel need to sail under the national flags. So from this view, is the movement of the good within the country water or within the same state must apply the Cabotage policy where only a national flag vessel can use to transport the goods and the foreign vessels are prohibited. This regulation has agreed certain criteria for the which vessel can engage the coastal trade. For example, of this criteria is ship registration and ownership, crew composition, origin of the ship, any situation where not ordinary outer ship or also other foreign vessel can allow to be trade. So from here, cabotage trade and international trade are different when the cabotage policy exists. Any international cargo must ship to other coastal destination by the authorized vessel once unloaded at the destination port. For example, each country that use the cabotage policy have set their designated port before going to other port within the same country. So the cargoes that come from the other country will transit at the designated port, then it transfer to the national flight vessel to be sent to other state in the same country. So in the cabotage policy, it will involve the feeder service usually. Okay, let's move to the implementation of the cabotage policy in Malaysia. In Malaysia, the cabotage policy was introduced by the government in 1980. When we refer to the cabotage policy, any domestic trade can be only served by the Malaysian flight vessel only, and it need to have a consent from the Malaysian Ship Owner Association, also known as the MASA, even if no local vessel can provide the service. In this cabotage policy, only the vessel registered in Malaysia may load and unload cargo in Malaysia. So it means that the cabotage policy is a policy where all the vessel must cross the Malaysian main port or also the port as the designated port as per cabotage policy, and cannot proceed directly to the Malaysian other ports. So the initial purpose of this policy was to make the Portland as a container hub port in Malaysia. Because of this, it has made the Portland the only national offloading center where the non-Malaysian flight vessel or the foreign vessel or any not belong to a Malaysian shipping company need to unload the cargo at the Portland before it can be shipped to another port in Malaysia. So the cabotage policy want to make the Malaysia as a maritime nation and reduce the reliance of the foreign vessel but enhance the Malaysian domestic shipping. This policy will protect and develop and help the development of the Malaysian domestic capacity in the logistics and trade. This policy will mandate all the seaport to comply, regardless of whether the seaport is under the jurisdiction of the maritime department or the state of the government. So, in this cabotage policy, the domestic shipping licensing board (DSLB) was created to regulate and control vessel licensing in the Malaysian domestic shipping between the part. Any company that want to obtain the unconditional license must have the 30% of local equity interest. So, not only that, the ship owner must be the Malaysian. 75% of the board and the office employees must be the Malaysian. The company must be incorporated in Malaysia, and for the main office in Malaysia, and last one is the most of its management activities in Malaysia. So, however, the foreign vessel can engage the domestic shipping by apply the exemption of the cabotage policy from the DSLB, where there is no suitable Malaysian flight vessel is available to provide the service and route. So the primary purpose of the cabotage policy was to attract more vessels registered under the Malaysian flag, and it want to protect the shipping industry as the restriction imposed on the foreign companies to access the Malaysian ports, and it also want to encourage a new local company in Malaysia to involve in the multi trade. So this will able to encourage more Malaysian involved in the shipping industry. So because of this, the East Malaysia, also the Sabah and Sarawak, require the service of the feeder vessel from the Port Klang. But in the Peninsular Malaysia or the West Malaysia, just only a simple truck and container train to transport the cargoes. This is because the West Malaysia, also the Peninsular Malaysia, just use a truck and container due to the transport cost is very low, it's very cheap, and the distance is very short. So it's not relevant to use the vessel. However, there was a complaint that happened where the cabotage process is not necessary. This happened because it caused the higher price of goods to Sabah and Sarawak. This is because the cabotage policy made a larger prices of goods supplied to Sabah and Sarawak because the vessel need to transit at the Port Klang first before it going directly to Sabah and Sarawak. So at the end, the end consumer will bear the higher costs. So the cabotage policy has been amended where the policy has been relaxed to allow the non-Malaysian flag vessel to operate the Malaysian domestic shipping in a certain situation. Okay, move to the timeline of the cabotage policy where it has been amended to be relaxed to allow the non-Malaysian flag vessel to operate in our domestic shipping. First, the cabotage policy has started their first amendment in 1994 to allow the foreign vessel to do a transshipment activity between the Penang Port and Port Klang. This exemption is happened to strengthen the Port Klang position as a hub port to compete with the Singapore. Next, in 2000s, the transshipment cargo between a designated port in the East Malaysia and Port Klang due to the first intention to make liberalize the cabotage policy. In 2019, the cabotage policy is cancelled due to the liberalize. So it's give the foreign vessel to carry out the transshipment activity between the Sabah Port and the port of Kuching in East Malaysia and PTP in West Malaysia. In 2012, the cruise vessel was exempted, and in 2016, the transshipment for container cargo between PTP and Kuantan Port, Port of Sarakan and Port of Tawau is be low for the foreign vessel. In 2017, next, in 2017, the cabotage policy for the shipment between the West Malaysia and East Malaysia was abolished due to the high shipping cost. So the foreign vessel can go directly to the Sabah and Sarawak without transit at the Port Klang. However, the cabotage policy is still applied to cargo shipping within the East Malaysia. And the latest one is in 2019, the exemption is given to the foreign vessel to carry out the underwater cable repair because to attract foreign infrastructure into the Malaysia and to reduce the time required for this operation. Okay, next is about the downturn of the cabotage policy in Malaysia. There are three issues, which are the price disparity in East Malaysia, which is the Sabah and Sarawak, that lead to the abolishment of the cabotage policy. Second is the lack of the capacity and capability in the domestic shipping in Malaysia, that lead to the cabotage policy realization. And the third one is the cabotage policy is being viewed as a monopoly in the domestic market. However, in this part, we will tell you about the price disparity of the East Malaysia. So we go to the price disparity in Sabah and Sarawak lead to abolishment of the cabotage policy. This cabotage policy is like a barrier to the trade that limit the foreign competition. This policy want to have the national interest but enhance the new local shipping industry to grow and to facilitate the local industry. However, after 32 years, this policy not to be effective because it does not serve the purpose of the making the Malaysian shipping industry more competitive. So it does more harm to domestic growth and distort the competition in the local maritime industry. In Sabah, the cabotage policy become a bottleneck because the limited market access in there, and it failed to benefit the domestic shipping line, and it caused the high cost of goods in Sabah. This high cost of goods in Sabah will be based on the freight rate or freight charges and the lack of manufacturing sector that contribute the high retail price in Sabah. So not only that, the high taxation cost, price discrepancy between the Western and Eastern Malaysia. It means that the price discrimination happened between the East and Malaysia and Western Malaysia because of the higher shipping cost. The policy has restricted the foreign vessel from the Far East, such as Japan, China, South Korea, and Taiwan, to ship cargo directly to the East Malaysia, which is Sabah and Sarawak, but they need to do transit and unload their cargo at the Port Klang first, which must reload onto Malaysian flag vessel again across the South China Sea until it reaches the East Malaysia. So it will cause the high cost to be incurred, especially cost of the import and price of gold, and then it will affect the small business and low income earning in the East Malaysia, which is the Sabah and Sarawak. So the price in Sabah is affected by their inefficient landscape and the high cost of inland transportation. It also caused by the lack of competition and distribution channel, and it affect the operational cost, warehouse charges, truck rental, and port efficiency. So as the cabotage policy has exist, which give a jurisdiction, has caused a weak incentive for the operator to modernize and difficult to be more competitive. So because of this, this dispute has become a long debate for a long time, and it caused the abolishment of the cabotage policy in 1 June 2017.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is MUHAMAD ROSLI. So I will continue for the second point in downturn of cabotage policy in Malaysia, which is the lack of capacity and capability of domestic shipping in Malaysia led to the relaxation of the cabotage policy. The first issue that appears in this is the underwater cable repair. In domestic shipping in Malaysia, there is some issue that exemption on cabotage policy has been given to the foreign vessel due to lack of capacity of services, which threaten the Malaysia domestic shipping, where the non-Malaysian flag vessel will be used to operate in Malaysian territorial waters. They will use to carry out the data cable maintenance work. The vessel that is equipped with Dynamic Positioning Class 2, which is DP2, is required. However, only one vessel is available to do so. But that vessel cannot be used due to lack of technical capability, leading to deep sea cable maintenance work inefficiency. Although that vessel can do so, it can lead to monopoly issues where only a domestic shipping company is involved in undertaking this activity. The next example is the trade imbalance in East and West Malaysia that caused by the limited capacity of ports in Sabah and Sarawak that are unable to accommodate larger vessels. This happened because ports draft in East Malaysia are shallow. This will lead to not enough cargo generated for ship to haul back, resulting the reliance on foreign vessels happen. Lastly is the cabotage policy is being viewed to monopoly domestic shipping market. Cabotage policy as a non-tariff barrier has hurt the local economy and contradict the premise of the trade liberalisation, drive it to restrict the market access and create monopoly in maritime sector. Malaysia also adopting the policy that limits the firm to participate in economic activities. The first example in this point is the MISC tanker fleet crude oil. MISC is owned 65% by Petronas that focus on tanker fleet and serve shipping crude oil abroad. MISC has no choice but to participate in Space Sharing Alliance due to the cabotage policy limit the participation in the shipping industry. However, this will help MISC create a natural monopoly where become the only companies to ship most of goods abroad. Next example is the Optic Marine that perform underwater cable repair. The revocation of cabotage exemption occurred to let Malaysian flag vessel engage in this operation in November 2020. Currently, Optic Marine is the only local shipping company that have OSV equipped with DP2. This will make monopoly happen and affect other OSV provider. Next part is the limitation and delimitation in this study. The researchers are struggling in obtaining the particular data related to the research. This is because the evaluation of cabotage policy took place when the issue arose in Sabah and Sarawak in terms of their price of goods. Besides that, the researchers have limited access in getting a particular journal article that is related to our studies. For example, researchers need to purchase them or need to wait for a certain period where the author can give a permission for the researchers to access the particular journal. Last but not least, the information that researchers evaluate in studies by using secondary data information only. Researchers cannot do face-to-face interview that involve the interviewer who is a researcher who asks questions and collects data, and the interviewee who is the topic or respondent who is being asked question.
The strength of cabotage policy. It allows the public bodies to negotiate rather too strongly with a ship owner and provide the administration with an element of a favorable control. In the allocation of the public service agreement and government obligations, the committee has contributed to increase the transparency. So the corporate institutions may invest in shipbuilding and construction in the country in hope of utilizing the market offered by the cabotage policy as well. Other than that, the majority of the shareholding, including the voting share of the corporation, is held by Malaysian citizens and the obligations in favor of non-Malaysians. More jobs will be created in the maritime sector to the full benefit of indigenous trade in the maritime-related field. Let's move to the next part. Weak distribution channels of high handling charges and inefficient inland transportation is also a weakness. As such, more energy should be focused in both human and facility development for both operations and repair if the act is to make the necessary of maximum development. Limits market access has the form monopoly in the shipping industry. So the foreign operators have the option to localize through available local partnership. So the lack of capacity of ship owner and the legalization of cabotage give way to unequal competition among the several states of transportation company. So this will be the weakness of cabotage policy. What is the opportunity? Well, the opportunity is improve Malaysian ownership and local shipping as well as to control the dependence of Malaysian on foreign vessels. The cabotage vessel financing fund made available to indigenous by the policy will thus enhance their position to participate in the lucrative business of shipping. It also promote and develop Malaysia as an international cruise destination because the safety issue of a particular country or in a particular destination. And Kana, what are the threats? guess. The threat is to perform submarine cable maintenance every time was more likely to expose the country to possible data security threats. It also reduced the country's dependence on foreign boats through expanding local maritime industry participation. The freedom of agencies such as the companies to award contracts like the charter contracts will be high, delimited by the cabotage policy. So that will be the threats.
Salam sejahtera kepada Dr. Izan, Anggang SHENG S55406. Today I would like to conclude the result and discussions that our group have made, which about the challenges, pros and cons of cabotage policy in Malaysia. We conclude there are several challenges which will lead the cabotage policy to be abolished. First, implementation of cabotage policy will give impact to the price of goods at Sabah and Sarawak, which it will increase. As per review in the literature review, the implementations of cabotage policy has put several issues and challenges to the Malaysia. Cabotage policy, which aim to protect the domestic shipping industry and ensure them to grow by reducing the foreign competitions in Malaysia. However, the cabotage policy does not successfully fulfill it. In contrast, the cabotage policy stimulates that any foreign vessels should unload the cargo at Port Klang before going to the port of East Malaysia. Efficiency landscape inland transportation cost is high, lack of competition and distribution channel inefficiencies. These are the factors which will give impact to the price of goods at Sabah and Sarawak. The second challenge is lack of capability and capacity of domestic port of Sabah and Sarawak, which allow domestic with more reliance on the foreign vessel. The Registrar of Cabotage Policy has considered the lack of capability and capacity port in Sabah and Sarawak, which caused all the international shipping activities should unload and loading at Port Klang. The port of East Malaysia, which are unable to accommodate the bigger size of vessels. In addition, the essentials of cabotage policy was applied to engage in our territorial waters to carry out undersea communications to repair cable due to lack of capability, which threatened the Malaysia's domestic shipping, where the non-Malaysian flag vessel. It brings the subsequent impact to the local business, which has increased the reliability of foreign vessels. Therefore, because Malaysia is lacking to have capability to provide a service for the domestic shipping in the particular situations, the essentials was given to the foreign flag vessel instead of Malaysian flag vessel to engage in Malaysia domestic water. Thus, this will cause unattractiveness for Malaysia as a domestic service provider in domestic activities. The third challenge is exiting of the cabotage policy will create the monopoly phenomenon in domestic market. The cabotage policy has limited the participations of carriers in shipping industry. It creates less competitions in the domestic market and it produced an opportunity for some shipping industry which are able to monopolize the market. The case of undersea water repair and national territorial waters, which only the ordinary shipping industry able to engage in this project. It leads to the monopoly of only local shipping providers in Malaysia that can conduct underwater cable repair. Next, cabotage policy will benefit the shipping industry, while at the same time, its advantage will become a threat to the domestic shipping company. From the related discussions, in the presence of our cabotage policy, we can conclude that the cabotage policy can encourage the local shipping industry to participate in the domestic shipping. As the cabotage policy wants to protect the country domestic shipping by allowing local vessels and restrict the participations of foreign vessels. Then, more local shipping industry will be able to carry out their operations by accommodating the cargoes or container from foreign vessels which to be distributed the locations within the same country. For example, when the foreign vessels transit at Port Klang in Malaysia, the feeder vessel is in use where the local vessels will carry the cargoes that has been transferred from foreign vessels to local vessels, then shipped to any port in Malaysia. At the same time, this will reduce the reliance of foreign vessels. The participation of foreign vessels is being minimized and the participation of local vessels is growing. This will give benefit to the country economy and shipping sector in that country. In addition, the cabotage policy seems to increase the competitions among the local shipping industry very. As the local shipping industry starts to grow, the industry will compete among of them to provide a reliable and good quality service to serve domestic shipping. This will boost the engagement of local shipping industry in domestic trade. Besides, the cabotage policy also can provide job opportunity to the country citizens to engage with shipping sector. For example, where the local shipping industry are growing because of the implementation of cabotage policy, more jobs will be created and this will give a chance for the Malaysians to participate in shipping sector as well as increase the Malaysians seafarers and reduce the reliance of foreign seafarers to serve our local vessels. Therefore, the unemployment rate also can be reduced, and Malaysian workers can enhance their skill and knowledge in shipping sector, and more jobs in maritime sector can be produced. The Cabotage policy also will improve the Malaysia's ownership and domestic shipping. The Cabotage policy will attract the vessels to register under national flag compared to foreign flag, as more benefit can be given to the shipping companies. For example, when the shipping companies incorporate in Malaysia and the vessel registered under Malaysia flag, the vessel can engage in any activities in Malaysia's water from 6 months to 2 years instead of 3 months for foreign vessels by applying the domestic shipping license from the Malaysian Ship Owner Associations. So, the Cabotage policy will improve their standing in the profitable shipping industry. This is not only beneficial to the Sabah and Sarawak. In fact, it will further develop the country of Malaysia because it is not too depending on the foreign vessels. And because of the safety issues, we think Malaysia are a harmonious country and free from war. This enhance and develop Malaysia as an international tourist destination. Therefore, there will be a potential of a new market in Malaysia for the investor in a distant future and bring more investment into Malaysia. On the other hand, the presence of Cabotage policy also have several disadvantages. As per analysis in this study, the Cabotage policy may create a monopoly and unfair trade. Malaysia's Cabotage policy has adopted the perfectionist policy where it limits the numbers of local shipping companies to engage in domestic shipping. This will establish the particular shipping companies to monopolize particular market where the shipping companies only can carry out the operations. Not only that, monopoly in domestic shipping can also occur in several ways, where only a limited number of shipping companies which have capability to perform certain activities in domestic shipping, and neglecting the other local shipping companies to involve. For example, in the project of underwater cable repair by United States within Malaysia's water, only a single shipping company is only able to carry out these activities by only one vessel only. Thus, this shipping company can be monopoly on this market for underwater cable repair, and other local shipping companies in Malaysia are unable to do so. As a result, the competition of local shipping companies will be affected. Next, we have found that the Cabotage policy they are partially strict in Malaysia also create an opening for foreign vessels to participate in domestic shipping. Usually, this happens when the current conditions of the country is still not effective to implement the Cabotage policy to be fully strict due to lack of capability to meet the domestic shipping. If the local vessels are unable to carry out domestic shipping, unable to perform due to unavailability of particular vessels, then the foreign vessels is allowed to perform in domestic shipping. Therefore, it indicates that the readiness of the country to depend on the local vessels is still low and need to build the nation's capacity. In addition, the Cabotage policy may create an additional cost for the transportations. Usually, this occurs when there is inefficiency of location structures such as East Malaysia, which comprise of Sabah and Sarawak. The transportation costs for the shipment of Sabah and Sarawak are higher than West Malaysia, and the trade imbalance occurs between the West and East Malaysia. The high shipping costs, which increase the price of goods in East Malaysia, eventually affecting the consumers. Not only that, the increase of transportation costs also happen where the vessel needs to transit half of the country, which adding more distance instead that led to the final destinations with less distance. For example, the vessel from Japan need to reach Sabah as final destinations. However, the vessel need to transit at Proclam before reach to Sabah, which adding more additional cost of transportations. On the other hand, it will increase more time and delay happen to reach the final destinations. As a result, the Cabotage policy has made market in East Malaysia are less viable and unattractive.
I'm NURUL AZIZAN, S55084. I will explain about the possible solutions and recommendations of Cabotage policy. So we start with, as we know that Malaysia has adopted a partial liberalization policy when it comes on the global maritime sector. Various incentives are made to attract foreign direct investments and other opportunities for Malaysia maritime sector according to the country's government. The government of Malaysia has announced plans to introduce Cabotage policy for the country's road. It will be an efficient policy with clear plans to enhance Malaysian maritime sector. Okay, Malaysia require strategic plans to enhance marine trade in Malaysia to recruit more local shipping companies. Okay, almost 80% of the cargoes from Malaysia are using the non-Malaysian flag vessels. In fact, Malaysia as a maritime nation, Malaysia of course needs to build more capacity building to serve domestic shipping without relying on the foreign vessels. Okay, the high reliance on foreign vessels is just because the unattractiveness of Malaysia as a maritime nation due to being located at strategic locations, which is at the Strait of Malacca. Okay, then Malaysia needs to have a strong economy. This is a very important thing. Malaysia must have a strong economy first before implementing the liberalizations. This will include having a strong capital, a good productions, economy, and consistent growth. Okay, by doing this, the Cabotage policy can be sustained and continuously improved. Okay, Malaysia economic situation is in need of improvement. Okay, then we go to the safeguard, the proper safeguard and action plans. The government need to address certain issues such as lack of skilled worker. Malaysia is struggling to face insufficient experts to serve the maritime trade industry. If not properly managed, it will adversely affect and bring more harm than benefits. Then, the government needs to prioritize and invest in enhancing sufficient skilled manpower to be involved in any sector that contributes to maritime trade. Okay. Human resource development also needs to be highlighted. Other than that, port clung needs to be improved to attract more foreign vessels registered under Malaysian flag. Okay, the liberalizations of the maritime service sector must be accompanied by proper preparations. Okay, this is from Minister of State of Maritime Affairs. Okay, I just hope that will encourage more calls from shipping linear to engage in domestic trade. Okay, then we go to cabotage policy can be relaxed. Okay, this means that foreign participations will be at a low based on the written benefits of Malaysia can be obtained. Okay, it must depend on particular circumstance. This is all for me with the possible solutions and the recommendations of the cabotage policy.
Well, now we are in conclusion. The Malaysian government enforced a cabotage policy on the shipping industry in order to enhance the participation of Malayan enterprises in the maritime sector. In order to promote the development of domestic navigation firms in the maritime industry, the application of cabotage policy could be helpful. However, when widely construed, the coasting trade policy could hinder Malaysia's appeal as a digital infrastructure investor, which would encompass the use of the ship to deliver the services other also in shipping, and which would also include the underwater cabling maintenance. Lastly but not least, a cabotage policy may have contributed the protection of foreign competence as non-tariff obstacles, but also hurt domestic economic growth in East Malaysia in particular. The consequences of the cabotage policy led to limited market access in the maritime industry and the natural monopolies. So, thank you so much for listening.